Three unresolved mysteries that continue to plague my life. God help me. Volume 2. There are three mysteries that haunt the waking mind, though they wear the simple clothing of childhood questions. Where did I come from? What happens when I die? Why are girls so weird? The phrasing sounds almost comic, as if the cosmos could be reduced to a barstool lament. Yet the humor, if you listen closely, is only the disguise worn by awe. The laughter is the soul's way of keeping its sanity before the abyss. The first question belongs to dawn, the second to dusk, and the third to the trembling hour, in between when human beings first discover that love is an earthquake in miniature. They are not separate riddles, but one revolving mystery seen from three sides: the mystery of origin, the mystery of return, and the mystery of encounter, birth, death, and relation, those three fires around which consciousness warms its hands. Where did I come from? Is the earliest cry, the first tremor of metaphysical nostalgia. Every infant before language carries within it a faint ache for something just lost. We call that ache hunger, but it may be the grief of exile. The Greeks imagined that before birth, souls drank from the river Lethe so that they might forget where they came from and endure their separation from the divine. Forgetfulness, they said, is the price of embodiment. Memory would have burned us alive. Perhaps this is why the newborn wails, not because of the bright light or the cold air, but because the remembering has already begun to fade. Is the tragedy of consciousness to suspect it once knew more than it now does? I have tried to think of origin not as an event, but as an ongoing participation. The self is not manufactured once and for all. It is constantly emerging from the depth of the world. The theologians call this creation ex nihilo, but nothing is a misleading term. The nothing out of which we are made is not void, is fullness beyond comprehension. The mystics call it the womb of God. The physicists call it the quantum field. The poets call it night. Each is trying to name the same silence. And so the question, where did I come from, is never answered by genealogy or geography. I came from the deep interior of being, the same furnace that births stars. That is not arrogance but recognition. The universe is not a place I live in. It is the larger body of which I am the smallest nerve. Still, the child in me demands specifics. He wants to know how. He wants blueprints. He does not understand why every explanation seems to evaporate into metaphor. He wants to walk back through time and touch the moment before time began. And perhaps in some sense he already has, for dreams often carry fragments of that first light. In dreams we drift among our beginnings, nameless, half amphibian, waiting for form. There are nights when I think that the soul's true home is not heaven, but the instant just before awakening. That suspended second when we remember everything, and then lose it all again, that is origin itself, eternally replayed. The second mystery, what happens when I die, is the echo of the first. If birth is exile, then death is return. But return to what? The religious imagination offers its architectures of reassurance, gardens, flames, cycles, halls of judgment. The psychological imagination offers dissolution. The mind disperses into archetypes, the personal becomes impersonal. Both, I think, are partly right. The self does not end, it changes address. Death is not the opposite of life, but its hidden partner, always rehearsing us for reunion. Every night we die a little, falling backward into the unconscious. Every act of love is a small extinction of boundaries. Every genuine act of forgiveness is a death to pride. The body simply follows later what the heart has already practiced. There are those who say death is final, that consciousness is an accident of meat and will perish with its machinery. I do not argue with them, perhaps they are right. Yet even their certainty feels like faith inverted. For faith, whether light or dark, always concerns the unseen. The question of death has no atheists, there are only believers in different kinds of silence. I sometimes picture the afterlife as a great remembering. Not a place, but a restoration of context. Here we live inside a sentence whose beginning and ending we cannot see. Death may be the moment the whole paragraph finally makes sense. The body collapses, and the grammar of being reveals itself. Ah, The soul says, "So that's what that comma was for." And then it laughs, not cruelly but with relief. Still, one must live in ignorance. To know too much would ruin the story. So we walk around pretending to forget that we are mortal. We build calendars, institutions, and dental plans. We plan for the weekend as if the weekend were guaranteed. It is a touching performance, this defiance of finitude. It makes us human. But deep down we know the truth. Death is not waiting for us at the end of a road. It is walking beside us, invisible, tender, adjusting our pace so we don't trip over eternity. And then comes the third question, the most ridiculous and therefore the most sacred. Why are girls so weird? Only a fool would separate this from the first two. The mystery of the feminine is the living interface between birth and death. She is both doorways at once, the one through which we enter and the one through which we are swallowed. To encounter her is to feel again the vertigo of origin and the longing for return. Across every mythology, woman is not merely a gender, but an element, a principle of transformation. She is the moon that draws the tides of consciousness, the matrix in which form dissolves and reforms. The ancient texts called her Sophia, Shakti, Isis, Eve. In dreams, she appears as the stranger who knows your name, the one who hands you a mirror and says, "Look closer." And you do, and what you see terrifies you, yourself, but alive in a way you never imagined. So when I say girls are weird, I mean they belong to the side of reality that refuses to be domesticated by explanation. They are weird in the old sense of the word, WYRD, meaning fate, the spinning of the unseen threads. To fall in love is to walk into the machinery of destiny. It rearranges your hours, your appetites, even your sense of who you are. The feminine principle does not visit to flatter the ego. She comes to dismantle it. Men who are trained from birth to believe that control equals safety find this unbearable. They call it weirdness because they do not have a better word for power that works through indirection, for wisdom that reveals itself through chaos. They mistake mystery for irrationality. Yet the feminine is not irrational, she is superrational. Her logic is spiral, not linear. She moves through intuition, symbol, rhythm, and timing. To meet her is to discover that not all intelligence is analytic. Some of it dances. This is not to idealize women. They suffer under the same weight of confusion as men do, perhaps more so, for the world has long punished them for embodying what it cannot understand. But in each woman there glimmers a trace of that primordial authority, the one who knows how to make life out of darkness. To encounter her is to feel both rescued and destroyed. I have often thought that the first woman a man ever meets is death, for every birth is accompanied by risk. And the last woman he meets is death again. Between them are all the others, intermediaries and translators of the same mystery. No wonder we alternate between worship and fear. There is an ancient story that when God first made man, he placed him alone in the garden so that he might learn to name the animals. But the animals were content to be unnamed, and Adam grew restless. The divine saw that something was missing, a mirror that could look back. So he drew woman out of sleep and gave her not to complete man, but to confuse him perfectly. For in her eyes he would see both his beginning and his undoing. The rest of history is commentary. To love is to remember the origin we cannot describe. To lose love is to practice dying. Between these two rehearsals we build a life, a kind of mythic theater in which the same three questions are staged over and over. Who am I? Where do I go? What is this other creature who keeps undoing my answers? And perhaps that is what the gods intended. For if we ever solved these mysteries, we would have no reason to stay. Ignorance is the divine leash that keeps us tethered to existence. The mind strains against it, calling it torment, but the soul knows better. Mystery is what keeps the heart beating. Sometimes I imagine the three questions as sisters, the moirai, the fates. The first spins the thread, where did I come from? The second measures it, what happens when I die? The third cuts it laughing, why are girls so weird? For the third sister understands that every ending is also an invitation to begin again. Her laughter is the music of becoming. I have heard it said that philosophy begins in wonder. But wonder itself begins in failure, the failure to master life with thought. Every time I meet something or someone I cannot categorize, I am returned to that sacred helplessness. I fall back into the state of the child, staring at the stars, asking impossible questions. The trick is not to grow out of it. So I try to live with my mysteries the way one lives with weather, accepting their moods, learning their patterns, grateful when they let me go outside without an umbrella. I do not seek resolution anymore. I seek relationship. The questions have become companions. They walk beside me like ancient familiars, whispering riddles that make the ordinary shimmer. When I wake in the morning, I sometimes feel that I have just climbed out of some vast ocean, still dripping with forgotten dreams. The air feels thin, the world provisional. I make coffee. I remember my name. But under it all runs a current of déjà vu, the sense that I have done this before many times and will do it again. That too is a kind of answer. Where did I come from? From this endless rhythm of emergence and return. What happens when I die? I sink back into it. Why are girls so weird? Because they remember more of it than I do. In that sense, the feminine is closer to the source. She keeps the memory of the ocean in her pulse. She bleeds by the moon, bears pain that becomes flesh, and dreams in patterns the rational mind cannot decode. To love her is to be reinitiated into the mystery of cycles. It hurts, it heals, it hurts again. But in that oscillation there is wisdom. Life itself breathes that way, contraction, expansion, rest. I think the gods laugh at our seriousness. They watch us build our religions and technologies, all the while knowing that every tool is just another way of touching the unsayable. They delight in our confusion because it means we are still alive, still reaching. The moment we understand everything, the play is over. So let the mysteries plague me. Let them keep me awake at night, pacing the floor, muttering, "God help me." It is better to be haunted than to be numb. To live without questions is to live without appetite. And the soul, like the body, starves without hunger. One day I will step through the last doorway, the one that joins beginning and end. Perhaps I will see then that the whole thing was a circle, that the three questions were actually one, and that the laughter of love was the key all along. Perhaps I will recognize in the face of the divine the same bewildered grin I've worn all my life. If that happens, I hope I have the decency to laugh back. Until then, I will go on fumbling through the sacred comedy, a creature of dust asking cosmic questions, falling in love with mysteries I cannot solve, and learning to call that bewilderment grace. God help me indeed.